While it may be cold outside, things are getting toasty warm at Global Voice Broadcasting. Heat up your winter nights with the hottest topics, the hottest celebrities, and today's best music. It's why Global Voice Broadcasting is becoming your 24/7 home for the music and talk you want right now. Discover your favorite shows and music anytime at globalvoicebroadcasting.com. Welcome to the world of Cabarabia, the world where Broadway, jazz, comedy, and pop share the spotlight, and a 2-drink minimum. With your host, producer, director, Clifford Bell, keeping the world safe for live performances in intimate settings on Global Voice Broadcasting.
And welcome back, and Happy New Year. I am so excited to present you with my first show of 2015. I have got an extraordinary woman in the studio with me today, and I'm just going to try to get out of the way and let you hear this woman's amazing life story. So please help me welcome to the studio, CORKY HALE. Hi, CORKY.
It's my honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's so nice to have you here.
And,
I don't know if you remember, but the very first time I ever met you was at Hollywood Sheet Music. I was there to visit my beloved pal Rick Starr.
Rick, darling Rick.
Yes.
Rick, if you're up in heaven, I hope you're listening to us.
Yes, and he introduced me to you,
right.
And I just thought you were the most charming, interesting woman. And in 5 minutes' time, I heard some of the key points of your very, very, very interesting life. And so now we have an hour, so I'm going to try to jam-pack it all in.
Well, I'm a real talker, so you'll probably have to shut me up and kick me out of the studio.
Probably going to have to shut
me
up.
But when you said I was so charming and everything, my husband, we will get to him later, the songwriter, he's very funny. But when people rave about something that he's done, he says, well, fooled him again. so anyway.
So for any of you out there who may not know, CORKY is a very, very accomplished pianist, jazz pianist, harpist, also a very prolific producer, and quite a political activist, with a life story spanning decades of literally the most significant names in the entertainment business, in the music business. Let me just start off with a graphic I have here. I love this picture so much. This is you with the great Lady Day, Billie Holiday. Tell me, you played piano for her, I believe.
Absolutely.
Right?
What happened was one of my first jobs out here, I was hired at the Coconut Grove, that gorgeous place, and they hired me as the harpist with the orchestra. And then they said, oh, you play piano? Well, you can become the intermission pianist. And then they said, well, oh, you play flute? Well, you can play flute on the Latin tunes. And then they said, you sing, don't you? And I went, And that, incidentally, those were the days of remotes, Clifford, where they said, and now from the beautiful Coconut Grove in the heart of Hollywood, California, it's the music of the Freddie Martin Orchestra with vocals by the lovely, and my maiden name is Hecht. And I thought, I don't think so. CORKY Hecht? I don't think so. So at that moment, I became CORKY HALE. Anyway, so I then got a call, and he said, this is Jerry Gray. I don't know where he was, somewhere, Tennessee, Detroit. And he said, I'm going into the Desert Inn in Las Vegas. I'd like you to join the band for a week, sing and play piano. I said, wow. Las Vegas in those days was so glamorous. It was like the south of France. Everyone got all dressed up, gorgeous clothes, everything. Anyway, so off I went to Las Vegas, and it's the first day of the rehearsal of opening day, and Jerry Gray says, they've just done a last-minute booking, and in walked Billie Holiday. So she looked over at the piano. Now, I also had been playing with Liberace on the Liberace television show, and Liberace had my hair. I was like a white blonde because he said it caught the lights better. Right. So now poor Billie walks in. She looks over at the piano. There's the teenage blonde, and she said, who's a piano player here? And I thought, oh, my God. Oh, help. Anyway, it was really like a movie because we did the rehearsal, and she ran over, and she put her arm around me. She said, you is my little girl. Aww. And so then she said, honey, I'm going into Jazz City in Hollywood, and I want you to play there with me. Well, that was great. So then we went to Jazz City, and Well, that was great too. And then she said, now we're going to the Philippines. And several things. First of all, I was just getting very busy in the studios. And secondly, she was then married to what? Husband number 4, Louis McKay, who years later died in prison for killing someone. I was scared to death of him.
Oh, wow.
So I was not about to go to the Philippines. And then, of course, she died in 1959. And that was quite a thing. Now, Audra McDonald just did it on Broadway this year.
And I understand you were a consultant.
Yeah, I was a
on that.
consultant. Her director came out, and then Audrey came out, and they got a lot of things from me. I didn't get a credit on the show, but anyway, she's a lovely woman, and I thought she did an incredible job.
Well, what an extraordinary thing to cross paths with Billie Holiday that way, so young, too. So much of your early opportunities came so young.
Well, Billie, everybody said, you played with Billie Holiday. She died in 1959. They said, how old were you? And I always say, 7.
Really? Now, also, there's another picture here, Gabe, of Corky with the harp. You have a very distinguished career as playing the harp. I mean, that's something that people. Oh, go ahead and take that off. See, I didn't realize that.
Well, there are several pictures. All right, I'm going to tell you. I was playing with Tony Bennett, and we were at the Waldorf, and this famous photographer came over named Peter Bash, and he said, you're gorgeous. I want to shoot pictures of you. And he said, I want to shoot pictures of you through the harp strings. Okay, so I went to his studio, and he said, can I shoot several nude pictures through the harp strings? And I went, okay, I guess that's okay. Well, Clifford, that's one of the things that are on the
I
and
hope
somebody's
you don't mind. I've got to wear my glasses
Hey, I
more.
had a good body in those days.
Yeah, you look gorgeous. So what's
anyway?
It's art.
Now everybody's going to turn on my website.
Yeah, we'll make people will watch this podcast for sure now. Anyway, so also I have a more recent CD. I know you've made 3 or 4, right? You have 3 or 4 releases as individual artists. But this is your most recent. Anybody wants to check that out?
That's a nice one because it's called Corky, Hale and Friends, and I've got a lot of girlfriends that are all good singers on there.
Right.
Frida Payne
Sally,
and
I know Sally well, yeah.
And my daughter-in-law, who is a really good singer, but she's at SC getting her pharmacology or whatever. I mean, she's brilliant, and she's singing on it. Tricia Tahara. We call each other Mrs. Stoller and Mrs. Stoller.
So I know that because you played something as unique as the harp, that got you a lot of calls and a lot of invitations for some of the greats. Barbara, you've played the harp for, and Mel Torme, right? Or no,
Mel, I played piano for.
But so you were also a pianist as well.
Well, a lot of people, because I'm so known, when I came out, people didn't play jazz on a harp. So, of course, I got lucky when you do something that most people don't do and you can do it halfway okay. So that's why I was so busy. People think I'm from New York or L.A., and I'm from, like, one step up from a farm town in the Midwest. So, so people said, oh, my God, she plays jazz on a harp. And that's what really got me started. And so many people don't know that I went to the piano when I was 3 years old, and I went da 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 da. So they started giving me piano lessons, and then I was accepted at the Chicago Conservatory when I was 7, and my folks would drive me in once a week, 130 miles.
Yeah.
And I had a full classical piano background, so I am a pianist too.
Right. And Gabe, there's another picture here with Buddy Collette. That's a cool picture.
That's the first album that I ever did. Gene Norman, because I would play at the Crescendo, and Gene Norman owned it. And so he said, oh, I want to record you. So that's the first album that I'm doing, and that's with Buddy Collette and Chico Hamilton on drums. And let's see, who was playing bass? Oh, gee, at this moment, there's so many names. I'm trying to remember everybody.
Well, if you will, let's just back up a little bit and tell me how you got started. I mean, you're this young, beautiful girl from, as you say, one step above a farm town, and all of a sudden you hit Los Angeles, and you're right away connected to some of the biggest names in the business. So how did that happen for you?
Let's go back to, for my senior year of high school, my folks sent me away to Stevens College for Young Ladies in Missouri. And at that time, this young Belgian guy came out with an album, and his name was Andre Previn. And I went nuts. I thought, oh my God! I drove the girls in the dormitory crazy. I played it night and day to the point where, of course, I could play every note that he played. And there was a bass player named Lloyd Pratt, and a guitar player named Al Viola. Well, it's okay now. So when let's see, how did I start? So now I'm then I told my parents I'm coming to Hollywood to get in the music business. And they said, are you kidding? My dad said, you're not for real. They sent me 1 year to the University of Wisconsin. Okay, now I screamed again, I'm going to run away. I'm going to Hollywood. So my parents bought me a new car, and they drove me out, and they enrolled me at UCLA, knowing that I would certainly behave and be taken care of. And so the girls out there said, wow. One of the girls said, I never heard anybody play jazz on a harp. Wow, you play the piano, and you play the flute, and you sing. My dad produces the show on Channel 5, and I'm trying to remember the name. It was something like, This Week in L.A. or whatever. And so I got a U-Haul. I got some fraternity boys. They loaded the harp on the U-Haul. We went down to the station, and I played, and they immediately put me on the weekly show. But the thing was, the producer said, and this is our bass player, Lloyd Pratt, and our viola, and our guitar player, Al Viola. And I went, is this for real?
Wow.
Is this for real? This can't be. I mean, And so these guys were so wonderful to me, and they said, wow, honey, we're going to get you started here. And they got me all kinds of jobs. I played night and day, everything, weddings, funerals, style shows, everything, And so that's how I got started.
And then one day, I'm leading up to the next picture I have here. One day the phone rings, and it's a gentleman named George, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us this story, and then I'll put the picture up.
Okay, well, so also, I got a call. One day, I moved out of the sorority house with one of the girls, and we got an apartment. And one day, one of the girls said, Cecil B. DeMille is on the phone.
Oh, right.
And I said, oh, sure, uh-huh. And my name was still Hecht at that time. So he said, Miss Hecht, it's Cecil B. DeMille. I want to bring you over to Paramount on the soundstage. I'm doing a movie called 10 Commandments. And whenever you see Ann Baxter, I want you to pretend you're playing the harp for her wedding music. So that was the start.
So Corky, it's not enough that your resume is Sinatra, Barbra Streisand, Peggy Lee, Mel Torme. You also have to get Cecil B. DeMille in there.
Very nice man.
Hilarious.
Okay. So
all right. So the phone rings.
So now the phone rings, and he said, "Hello, my name is George, and I play the violin." And my brother Walter plays the piano. We are starting a television show also on Channel 5. And we'd love you to play the harp with us. And as I say, every day, whoever called, I said, oh, wonderful. Well, that, of course, was Liberace. And to this day, my dearest friend, I miss him every day. I love him with all my heart. Though, you've got the nice picture. The loveliest man ever. And I toured 44 states with him. And he just... darling man, as I say, I miss him all the time.
Oh, that's so sweet. And we were talking earlier about he was really one of the first person that ever elevated young Barbra Streisand.
Right. She was the second on the bill, and everybody says, "Oh, this chick is so weird. Look at the way she moves her hands."
But he saw it right away.
And Mike, my husband, also in New York, where he grew up, said he once went down to the Village. What's the name of the club? I can't think. And this girl was singing, and everybody said, "Oh, she's weird." I mean,
the Bonsoir, the Lion.
Maybe it was the Bonsoir.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you hear her open her mouth, whoa! I remember hearing her on the first television show she did. I think it was 1962. And she opened up her mouth and she sang, "Happy Days Are Here Again." And I said, "Oh my God, that's the best singer I ever heard." She was wonderful.
So not only does Corky have a career that reaches back as far as Cecil B. DeMille, but also newer artists like Bjork and George Michael. I have a picture of you here with George Michael. You've gotten in with the more contemporary folks as well.
He's another darling guy. Well, a few years ago, this record producer called up and he said, there's a girl in England that wants to sing with a jazz harp, and I told her that doesn't exist. Anyway, then I thought of you. So he said she's from Iceland, and she lives in London, and her name is Bjork, and I said yes. And so my stepson, who was, I guess, a teenager at that time or whatever, said, "Oh, wow, she sings with the Sugar Cubes." Well, if you think I know the Sugar Cubes, I mean, I was so square. Anyway, So I said to him, well, send a tape of this singer. So he sends a tape, and I hear, oh, and I said, you know what? I don't think it's going to work out. He said, no, let me just bring her over. So he brought her over, and we spent 5 hours in a studio recording, and I said to her, my funny Valentine. So she was very sweet, and I forgot about her, and I forgot about the job, except that they never wanted to pay me, and I finally got a check later. Anyway, okay, so now my husband and I go to London later that year, and we're in Trafalgar Square at the big record store. I think that was also called Tower Records. And there's hundreds of albums of this woman, Bjork. It's selling like crazy. And they did something illegal. They took one of the numbers that I did with her in the demos and put it out, because, that's illegal. But I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to make it to do. But what happened was then, she brought me over later to do her MTV special and lots of things. But then George Michael evidently went and bought the album and called his producer in New York, the late Phil Ramone, also our dear friend, and said, find this woman, I want to record with her. So, of course, Phil said, well, of course I know Corky and Mike. So they brought me to New York, and they said, what sort of music should we prepare for you? And I said, do not anything. Just let me meet George, and he and I will figure out what he wants to sing. One of the things that I can do, I can play in any key, which is why I guess I've always played for singers. So George arrived, and we decided we would do I Remember You. And I remember in the booth hearing George saying, do you think that she could drop it a half step? And that would be in the key of B. And I said, yeah, sure. So anyway, and I'm on the Songs of the Century album with George. And he then, that was great. He brought me to London. I played Royal Albert with him, and Boy George, who I adore, and Elton John, who I will not mention. and then he brought me to Washington, and we did the human rights concert for 40,000 people in Washington. And once again, I love him. He's a lovely guy, lovely guy.
Wow. Well, Corky, so I'm really excited to show this clip I found. I went scourging on, what's that word? I went scavenging on YouTube to try to find a cool clip. And I hit gold with this. This is an appearance of you on The Tonight Show.
Oh, with Tony Bennett. Another wonderful guy that I love, love, love.
You're there playing harp with Tony Bennett, and I'm going to show the beginning where you get introduced and Tony sings a little bit with you, and then I'm going to cut over to the end of Tony's song because Johnny invites you to the couch, and you have an interview with Johnny, and then you sing yourself. So we're going to show that clip now.
Thank you, Clifford.
This is Is Corky been accompanying you? I know she has accompanied many. Corky Hale is sitting over here at the harp. Is a very pretty young gal. Is she going to accompany you on this number?
Yeah.
All righty, and then we'll have Corky come over and meet her. Over and, all right. This is pretty thing.
For once in my life.
Corky, come on over. Oh. Hi, Corky, how are you? Gee, that's lovely. That's lovely. Does the harp give you a good feeling behind you?
Especially when she plays. It's just like that.
Why does a young lady take up the harp?
Well, what would you do if I told you I was really a piano player?
Is this when we start as a piano player?
Yes, I did when I was 3 years old. Yeah.
Now, don't tell me now the piano fell apart, like the Marx Brothers used to do, and it fell out and you'd pick it up.
I was a spoiled brat, and I was studying at the conservatory, and I saw this harp. And so I said to my father, I've got to have a harp. And I kicked and screamed and threw a tantrum, and he got me a little one that I started on. And I progressed to the big one.
Is that a difficult? I know nothing about playing a harp. It just hasn't come up.
You want a fast lesson?
No, I couldn't do that.
Okay. I can show you a whole thing very quickly.
Yeah, pedals now. It has actually have pedals.
Come on, walk over.
I never realized a harp had pedals.
Try this. Go up with your second finger and come down with your thumb.
What?
You'll be great.
Go up where?
Up with your second finger. No. Okay. Up with the second finger.
Up with the
This
second.
one.
Nice.
Up.
Up.
Okay. Well, up.
Oh,
Up.
up.
Beautiful.
Like that?
You got hard instead of me.
Yeah, but that's easy. But you
Well, listen, with 15 more minutes, I can
What
show
are
you all the
these?
sounds.
What do these do? They tighten the tension on the strings or what?
Yeah, and they make all the different notes.
You carry that around the country with you?
Sure. Why not?
Couldn't pick up the flute or something
I
like
do
that, huh?
play the flute. I do play the flute.
You play the flute too?
The flute too, and the piccolo.
Now, you've accompanied a lot of
I was in your
Singers,
show
huh?
2 weeks ago.
when I was
playing-
on. Really?
No, I was playing piano for Diane Cannon when she sang. You just didn't see me. I was
Is that
there.
true? I didn't know
Sure,
that.
that was good.
Was I here at that time?
Yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry you weren't. No, I'm
See,
sorry.
no,
it was
I would
Barbara.
have remembered you were
I'm
here.
sorry.
This is Corky Hale, if you've played for Frank, I understand, Barbara Streisand, accompanied them on.
I'm on all Barbara's records. And Tony, of course. And the late Nat Cole. I did a lot of things with Nat. And I was on Ed McMahon's record album. I told him that tonight. I
You
played harp-
accompanied Ed McMahon?
Yeah, I played harp
on-
on Ed's record, sure.
Is that right?
Well, certainly.
I didn't know that. Did you play the flute? You play the flute? Is it
Yeah.
flutist or flautist, or are both correct?
I think Webster says both.
Both are correct, huh?
A
And you also sing. And I understand you're going to do a number for us tonight.
I'd like to.
And I hear you sing real well. Do you want to go over?
Thank you, Johnny.
Here's Miss Corky Hale.
If you had seen a woman now and then playing around with 27 men, quite possibly that woman was me. A flat, F sharp, I've sat there strumming harp for Tony Bennett, Barbara Streisand, and Peggy Lee. But singers want to act, and actors want to sing. And once before I die, I want to try everything. 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 'Cause this is the life. Here's where the living is. This is the life. Gee, but it's great. This is the life. I've waited long enough. This is the best. This is first rate. Jazz and champagne. Juicy filet mignon. Chill that buffet. I'm here to stay. Top of the heap. I'm where I want to be. This is the life. This is the life. This is the life. Is the life. Here's where the living is. This is the life. Gee, but it's great. This is the life. I've waited long enough. This is the best. This is first rate. Traveling in style. First cabin all the way. How sweet the song when you belong. Top of the heap. I'm where I wanna be. This is the life. This is the life. This is the life for me.
Yay. Oh my God. That is so fantastic, Corky.
Well, Clifford, can I tell you what happened after that
Please,
show?
please.
Every manager in the country, including Helen Keane, who managed Bill Evans, they all called up and they said, "Oh my God, I've got you booked in Cleveland and in Philadelphia." And da, 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 da. Well, at that time, I was seeing a man named Mike Stoller. I was wildly in love with him, and so I said to, especially to Helen Keane, I said, "Well, you know what? I'm not ready to just leave town just yet, but I will get back to you." And I said, "Thank you so much." Well. Of course, I never did, and I married Mike Stoller in 1970, And we just had our 44th anniversary.
Well, so I guess you did okay.
Well, I mean, he's wonderful. But the point is, I say to him, remember, who was it that said, you ruined my chances? The actor. Marlon Brando.
Oh, I could have been a
Yeah, I could have been, right. So I always say, I could have been a star, and look how you made me live. So that's it.
Well, it's funny, because you're very famous as a musician. You're very famous as a pianist and as a harp player. But I didn't realize what an amazing singer you were.
I know.
You really could.
Everybody says,
really
sing
could have
more,
been.
sing more, sing more. I don't know. I'm so busy doing everything else, building Planned Parenthood clinics and working for the Democrats. I hope I can say all this on the show. But
Well,
okay.
that's where
Okay.
we are in my,
Are we
in
headed
my
to
little
that?
outline. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
aside from all your
Yeah,
musical
right,
success and,
right.
and pursuits, you are also a very, very prolific producer. You've done a lot of producing of theatrical events.
Well, my favorite was a show that ran for 3 months at the Tiffany, that wonderful theater that's no longer around.
Yeah.
At that time, it was called Lullaby of Broadway, and it was the life story of Al Dubin. And people say, who's Al Dubin? Well, you know Harry Warren. So Dubin and Warren were two of the greats. They wrote 42nd Street and Lullaby of Broadway and everything. So that ran for 3 months. And then I took it to Florida to the 1,000-seat theater at Coconut Grove. And I retitled it then Boulevard of Broken Dreams. But also that didn't seem right. And so I was going to then take it to New Jersey. But I got so busy with so many other things that I, have not really pursued that. But now I want to do that because it's been rewritten, and it's now called I Only Have Eyes for You, which ASCAP said is one of the 10 most performed songs there are. And I'm so now working to put that show up with a score. Unfortunately, I guess I didn't bring the program, but I mean, that's got every kind. Well, I Only Have Eyes for You alone, and Shuffle Off to Broadway, and it just has every kind of great song in it. So
Yes, and I believe you also produced a production of Give 'Em Hell, Harry.
I produced Jason Alexander's. That was Jason's first show here in town. We've remained friends forever, and I produced that at the Tiffany, called Give 'Em Hell, Harry.
Oh, right. Yeah, I love the Tiffany. That was such a great theater.
Yeah,
it's a real loss, I
know
think.
it, absolutely.
Well, good luck with that. Now it's going to be called, your show is going to be called...
Now it's called I Only Have Eyes for You. And that score is just unbelievable. I'm sorry I didn't bring the program along with all those great songs.
Well, people can look stuff up online. Let me just take one quick second here. I do a little section where I do commercials for things that are coming up in my stuff.
Good.
Let me just take a couple minutes. My show next week is going to be, I call it 1001 Cabarabian Nights. And my show here on the podcast next week is going to be about the newly formed San Diego Cabaret Awards. Last year they had their very first ones. And the gentleman that is the major force behind that is a guy named Tim Moore. And one of the guest stars in this year's Cabaret Awards is going to be David Luckey. Now, I personally have never seen David Luckey yet, but I hear that he is an amazing singer-songwriter. He's one of those people that how when all your whole community starts buzzing, you've got to see this, you got to see this guy, you got to see this guy. That's who David Luckey is, and he's going to be in the studio with me next week. And then the following week, I'm going to have Artie Butler, who I believe is a gentleman Why don't you tell the people the story you told me a little while ago?
Okay, well, my husband is part of a team called Lieber and Stoller, which we'll get to that in a little bit.
Right.
And unfortunately, Jerry passed away 3 years ago. But they were the longest songwriting team in the history of music. They wrote together for 61 years. And, of course, as I say, they wrote little hits like Stand By Me and Elvis's hits and everything. But so they were recording in New York. And in the studio was a young man called the button pusher. And in those days, the engineer would say, push the button, and that would start recording. So they were recording, Jerry and Mike, and the piano player just could not do what they wanted him to do on this particular song. And so this young man in the booth said, well, I play the piano. And the engineer said, shut up, kid. These are, Lieber and Stoller. And my darling husband said, well, come on out, kid, and try it out. So it's like the movies, the kid sits down and plays his behind off.
Yeah.
And so that was Artie, and Artie was 19 years old. And I think, as I recall, Artie said, well, they're paying me $25 a week here. And Mike and Jerry said, hey, we'll give you $100 a week, and you can do our records. So that was how they met Artie Butler. And then, of course, Artie's first wife, or no, his second wife was a harpist, anyway, a longtime friend of mine.
Yeah.
But, anyway, Artie actually lives about 5 minutes down the street from us, so we have remained great friends all these years. And I did actually play in a club last month. I played at Catalina, and I asked Artie to come up, and I was with Eloise Laws, the singer, and I said, Artie, come up and play, the Shirley Horn song for Eloise to sing.
Well, and for anybody who doesn't know, Artie Butler has gone on to a legendary career himself. He's one of the main producer, arrangers, composers in the music business. He's done a tremendous amount of TV and film work, worked with every major artist. And significant to me, because it's my favorite song, he wrote the gorgeous song with Phyllis Molinari, Here's to Life, which is absolutely exquisite. And I had the great honor of having him in one of my live shows last week where he performed it. And so he's going to come and have an interview with me on January 19th. And then after that, we have Kathy Siegel Garcia, who's a very popular jazz artist and educator and ambassador. She tours the world talking about jazz vocals. And then also something that I'm about ready to finish up is I'm doing a new recording project with Lauren White and the Quinn Johnson Trio. Once again, crossing paths with CORKY. Actually, the reason I ran into CORKY recently is I'd gone to see Steve Terrell's CD release party at the Catalina, because I work quite a bit with Quinn Johnson's good friend of mine, who is Steve's longtime musical director, and CORKY was there because Steve's new album is a lot of the music from the Brill Building, and featured several Lieber and Stoller songs. And so I just have a little promotional thing of this album that Lauren and the Quinn Johnson Trio and I are working on. CORKY was saying, where's her vocal? Where's her vocal? But we just made that as a little commercial while we were in the process of recording. So the album will be finished the second week of January. I'm very excited about that. And now, which brings us back to you and Mr. Stoller. Now I wanted to talk.
Boy.
I mean, I think it's significant enough just to interview somebody who's been married for 45 years.
In the music business,
Yeah,
yeah.
let alone that there's any
Right.
distinguished credits that have gone on, but that just being
Well,
able to share a life that way is extraordinary.
I
to
can
me.
talk about him for the next 3 weeks. No, he's a wonderful man. He's unbelievable. I was unhappily married before that, and he
Right.
was too, although his ex-wife is a nice woman, I must say. My ex-husband is not a nice man. I'm not sure that he's alive. I think somebody said he's 92 years old now. He's an Englishman, but anyway, we won't get into that. People say, well, he he's the man that brought Italian knitwear to this country. So I am fluent in Italian.
That's
and people
nice.
say, how about the marriage? I said, well, one good thing is I'm fluent in Italian. And I actually taught Mike. Mike speaks beautifully now. And, of course, we spend every July in Italy, and it's great.
Gabe, there's a nice picture of Corky and Mike here.
Oh, yeah, that's Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah. You said an interesting thing about him earlier to me. I'll paraphrase you a little bit, but you were saying that you knew that the man that you wanted didn't exist because you were looking for somebody who could hang out in blue jeans and be around, people just hanging out, and also then be able to put on a tuxedo and go to a nice place. And you found him.
Yeah, I did, and well, I have to be very honest. We are in a very mixed group. Many of our friends are black, and we don't call our friends African American. We call them black because I'm not a Hebrew American, and so we kind of laugh about that. And
that's a nice segue to talk about your great
one of the great
honor.
honors. Yes, it's one of our big honors.
Gabe, hit us with this next picture, and you can tell us a little bit about what this is.
Well, Morris Dees, who is God to us, I mean like a god, is the man that for 30 years has run something called Southern Poverty Law Center. And we've been supporters for all those years because Morris has almost single-handedly put the Ku Klux Klan and all those kind of people out of business. And he works a lot pro bono. He is a lawyer for many poor people that can't afford law. Anyway, so a year ago, April, Morris called and he said, we're going to bring you and Mike to Montgomery, Alabama. We're going to name the Southern Poverty Civil Rights Memorial Theater, which is in the plaza where Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks spoke. We're going to name it the Mike and Corky Hale Stoller Memorial Theater, Civil Rights Memorial, which, of course, was one of the biggest honors of our life. And that's what this picture that you just showed was.
Yeah, show it one more time, please, Gabe.
Yeah. And that's us. Can we...
Oh, it's hard for him to go backwards, right?
Anyway,
it's hard to go backwards. Yeah.
That's us. That's one of the biggest honors of our life, and
but you're very politically active.
Extremely.
I think it's fair to say liberal, democratic.
Well, I don't know how you can say that but in front of our house is a big picture of Obama. We live in a wonderful neighborhood that are all Democrats. A lot of people in the music business. Oh, you mentioned Herbie Hancock.
Yeah,
Herbie lives down the street from us.
People who watch my show know that my brother has a long history with Herbie.
Yeah, you mentioned your brother.
Yeah.
And you're from New Orleans, you said.
Yes, indeed. And my grandmother's family was from Montgomery, Alabama.
Which that was a shock to me.
Yeah.
Now, you've never met Morris, have you?
No.
All right. Hopefully later in the year we'll bring Morris. And Julian Bond, who is also our friend. Julian gave the speech that day. And we're going to hopefully have Julian and his wife later in the year.
So what led you to your involvement with that? How did you become so passionate about civil rights?
But my mother, I was raised by a very different, incredible mother who died. She was almost 95. My mother never set foot in a kitchen in her life. My brother and I were raised by Miss Ida Mae Cunningham from Jackson, Mississippi. Now, like all small town, there was a little river that ran through our town. And black people lived on one side and the white people on the other. And whatever it was, my brother and I were more comfortable with Ida on her side of the city. So when I went my 1 year to the University of Wisconsin, I was the first white student there that joined the NAACP. And people say, well, why? I said, I don't know. I was just more comfortable like that. And so I've been always very active in civil rights things.
It's interesting to me because as I was telling you earlier, my brother's career has been largely, almost exclusively black because of his involvement with Herbie and Ron Carter and Freddie Washington.
I played with Ron Carter in New York.
Yeah, these are all my brother's peeps, and Wynton Marsalis and Branford Marsalis. He's done long tours
that's
with
New
everybody.
Orleans, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and of course, my husband wrote almost exclusively for black artists. Hound Dog, which was, I don't know, was that their second big hit, I guess, was written for Big Mama Thornton.
Right, of course, that's legend.
Yeah, so, then I guess their first big hit was somebody that I hadn't even known. Ready? I just drew a blank. It was called, I think, Ugly Woman or something. I don't know. Anyway, my husband knows, he's like an encyclopedia. He knows everything about every record that, especially in the 50s and 60s. Oh, can I tell you something that people,
Please,
they
you
don't
can tell me
bel-
anything
okay.
you want, Corky.
Uh-oh.
You
Anyway.
can tell me anything you
No,
want.
okay. So now I moved to New York from here in 1966, and I rented the apartment of an actress. And that night she went out with a bunch of people, and she said, does anyone know this? She's supposed to be a great jazz piano player. And somebody said, no, she's a great jazz harpist. And they argued. Anyway, so somebody there said, well, you know what, send her over to the offices of Lieber and Stoller, and she can do some demos. I never heard of Lieber and Stoller. I was in Tony Bennett's band at that time, and also doing Barbra Streisand's TV shows. Okay, so I go over to the office of Lieber and Stoller, and this guy says, "Oh, welcome." And he said, "And this is my partner, Mike Stoller." I took one look at him. Anyway, that was absolutely love at first sight. But so now I go out with this Mike Stoller twice, and a girlfriend says, "Are you dating anyone?" And I said, "Oh, the cutest guy I've ever met." And she said, "What does he do?" I said, "Well, I was in his office and I saw a lot of sheet music. I think maybe he publishes or something. I know it's something with music." She said, "Well, what's his name?" I said, "Well, you're not in the music business." She said, "Well, what's his name?" And I said, "Mike Stoller." She said, "Lieber and Stoller, are you kidding?" She reeled off all their songs, none of which I had ever heard of. So he thinks that's very cute. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, I was in a different world. I was in a jazz world, or I was in the pop world, and that was it.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting.
But, the town where I'm from, the small town in northern Illinois, they played Gene Autry and Sons of the Pioneers. And one day when I was 14, I remember I had the radio on, and I heard this band called Stan Kenton. And I thought, I can't believe this. And then I heard a band called Woody Herman. I couldn't believe this. So that's what got me started.
Now, I'm really happy. I want to make sure that we talk about it while we're on the air. That there's a book being written about you, a biography.
Yeah, there is.
Because I mean, your story is so incredible.
I know.
And covers such a wide.
I can't believe it.
Scope.
I mean, I know that from the years that I lived in Rome. I lived in Italy during the Cleopatra years.
I know.
And I know I've had a really incredible life, and I'm lucky because I talked to so many people that did not have a happy childhood, and I'm one of those fortunate people. I had one of the happiest childhoods ever. Is that why I'm so screwed up now? No.
I would hardly call you screwed up,
anyway,
my dear.
And you know why my husband, did I tell you why my husband said he married me? He married me for two reasons. My chords and my cooking.
And he stayed for 45 years.
Well, my specialty is cornbread, so everybody that comes to my house says, "Oh, you got to make the cornbread." So, anyway.
So, I mean, just once again, I like to you've been on dates with James Dean and Frank Sinatra. I mean,
those are all in the book. And incidentally, Frank Sinatra treated me like a daughter because when he would go be invited to a lovely party, Frank had a sort of a short attention span, and he would get bored, and he could talk to me about music and everything. And also, I had a little black dress and pearls, so he always knew that I would, look proper when he would take me to some nice party.
And for the people that watch my show, Cabarabia, there's a large interest in Barbra Streisand, of course. So you were in the Happening in Central Park.
She hired me. That was the first big Central Park concert. Yes, and I played with Barbara.
Yeah.
And I love her. She's my idol. Did I tell you that I saw the first TV show she did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
1962, and wow.
Absolutely.
She's always knocked me out. She's still my favorite singer.
Yes. And some of your other pursuits, some of your other causes politically, I know you're very involved in Planned Parenthood.
And also NARAL. These are all women's, and something called WRAP, Women's Reproductive Rights.
Tell us what NARAL is.
The National Abortion Rights Action League.
Uh-huh.
But let's go back to Planned Parenthood, because Planned Parenthood, people think, that's all about abortion, and it is not. Planned Parenthood is about women's health, and we do mammograms, and we do prenatal, and we do a lot of contraceptives for young people, and we do women's health. So I get into arguments all the time when people say, you and that abortion stuff, but it's not. And and RAP, which is here out in Studio City, the woman that runs that, but we work with people all over the country. And I will
What
tell
i-
you
what
what
is
it's
that
called, the Women's
organization?
Reproductive Rights Assistance Project.
Uh-huh.
And what it means is if a woman, we're connected all over the country, and if some poor woman is raped in, let's say, Iowa or Nebraska, and she needs an abortion, she can't have a baby from a rapist, and she goes and then the clinic says, well, our abortions are $300, and she said, I've only got $150. We help her. We help the clinic, and we help, and that's another thing that I'm very active in.
And where would you say your interest in that came?
The same thing as just women's rights, which I've, since college and since coming out here and seeing, how I don't belong to now, and I don't belong to those things where, I hate the word feminism. Ugh. So I'm not involved in any of that, but I just, a lot of, women's health. That's what I'm interested in.
So we're coming to the end of our time together, which is sad, but I'm so grateful for you to have been here with me. It's such a great pleasure to talk to you.
I'm sad I had nothing to talk about.
Oh, I know
I told you
you're such
before. I
a-
said you're going to have to kick me
I'm
out.
going to have to pull it
right,
out of
because
you.
I can talk for 3 days.
Well, you've had such
Okay.
a fascinating life.
Yeah.
So when all is said and done, what is it you would like people to remember about you?
My happy marriage
Yes?
and the good work that I do both with politics and women's rights.
Yes?
That's it. Also, you've never asked me to do a play or appear on one of your cabaret things.
I'm coming. I've actually had the great honor of having you come by, and once again, as we began, so we shall end. It was because of our mutual beloved friend Rick Starr,
Right,
who
right.
people who have watched the show I've talked about a lot. He used to be the manager over at Hollywood Sheet Music, and he was a very dear, generous, considerate soul that
It was wonderful.
was very, very took care of his relationships with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I know that he really loved Corky, and I believe him. And when he passed, our community of people raised money to make a plaque for him. He wanted to be remembered on the West Hollywood Memorial plaque.
Right,
So
right.
we made a plaque that says, to our beloved Rick Starr, thank you for the music. And the day that we had the dedication ceremony, Corky agreed to come by and sing at the little nightclub Don't Tell Mama was still open over in West Hollywood. And Mark Shaman was there that day, and a few people, and Corky sang that day. Do you remember what you sang? I can't
What
remember.
I sang,
Was it I'm Glad There Is You, maybe?
maybe I really, that was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
2 years
Well,
ago?
it was about a year, a year
Yeah.
February.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, I would love for you to come be in a show. Please.
I promise I'll play the right notes and sing
I know
on
you
key.
will.
All right? Okay.
I know you will.
Okay.
Well, let me thank some people here. Thank you once again, Corky, for being here. It's a great honor.
Thank you.
And we'll all look forward to your book coming out.
Okay.
And we'll all look forward to when I Only Have Eyes for You reemerges, wherever that's going to be.
Next year. It will be, I hope, the end of 2015. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. And I'd like to thank my landlords here at the Global Voice Broadcasting, Mr. Todd Murray and Mr. Gabe Harder. And I would like to give a special second thanks to Gabe for being the operations manager and my personal in-studio engineer. And I'd like to thank my new associate producer, starting officially in 2015 with our new closing credits. Andrew Apple, thank you, bye.
And so it seems that we have met before and laughed before and loved before, but who knows?